welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we're going to totally strip away the Web3 buzzwords, the hype, and all the confusion, and we're just going to look at the actual physical machinery of how decentralized internet communities make decisions. If you've ever wondered how total strangers on the internet manage billions of dollars together without instantly falling apart, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to look strictly at the mechanics, the math, and the messy reality of DAO voting.
Okay, let's dive into this. Back in 2021, a group called ConstitutionDAO raised a staggering $47 million, and they had a single, wild goal: to buy an original copy of the United States Constitution at a Sotheby's auction. But what makes this incredible isn't just that massive pile of cash. It's where it came from. That entire treasury was pooled together by 17,000 complete strangers spread out all across the globe. We're talking no boardrooms, no corporate lawyers, and absolutely zero traditional oversight.
And get this, they pulled the whole shebang off in exactly 7 days. There was no CEO directing traffic, no traditional bank holding the funds in escrow. It was purely driven by digital wallets, clicking buttons on a screen. Now, when they ultimately lost the auction, that exact same system seamlessly voted to refund everyone. That is the raw, untamed power of a decentralized autonomous organization, or DAO. But how does it actually function under the hood?
Well, here is our game plan for today. We're going to objectively explore 5 key areas: the ballot box, the process, the math, the politics, and finally, the future.
Let's start with Section 1, the ballot box, tokens and power.
Right, so before you can vote, you obviously need a ballot. And in a DAO, that ballot is a token. And this brilliantly illustrates the core dilemma DAOs are wrestling with right now. On one side, we have the dominant model, which is one token equals one vote. It treats governance sort of like corporate shares. It's incredibly simple and inherently civil resistant, meaning you can't easily cheat the system by making thousands of fake accounts because, well, you'd actually have to buy tokens for every single one. But the trade-off is that whales, the wealthiest holders, absolutely rule. On the flip side, we have the rare one-person, one-vote model. This caps individual power, but it faces massive Sybil attack risks because, honestly, proving a unique human identity on the anonymous internet is still a totally unsolved problem.
Because DAOs relies so heavily on that one token equals one vote model, the data-driven reality is a pretty stark concentration of power. Just look at Uniswap, right? It's one of the largest decentralized exchanges out there. But a tiny fraction of holders, literally just 10 digital wallets, control 45% of the voting power. When capital directly equals voting power, the result is, objectively, a plutocracy. A handful of wallets can effectively dictate the direction of the entire protocol.
Moving on to Section 2, the process, ideas to execution.
So we know who gets to vote, but how do they actually do it? Well, voting isn't just clicking a button. By design, it's a slow, 14-day bureaucratic gauntlet. Step 1 is the forum discussion, which is basically where 99% of ideas go to die in a blaze of Discord arguments. But if you survive that, you move to Step 2, a temperature check called a snapshot. Step 3 is the actual, highly expensive on-chain vote. And finally, Step 4 is the time lock. That's a mandatory delay before the code automatically executes, which gives users a chance to actually withdraw their funds if they strongly disagree with the outcome.
Now, what's really interesting about this breakdown is where the actual decision-making goes down. Because transacting directly on the Ethereum blockchain costs real, actual money, sometimes hundreds of dollars in gas fees. 80% of all DAO voting happens off-chain on platforms like Snapshot. These gasless, off-chain polls act as the real vote, simply because they're free. The super expensive on-chain votes, those are generally reserved for a tiny 5% of proposals, basically acting as a final rubber stamp just to execute code or move money.
All right, Section 3, the math, quorum, and thresholds.
Here's the thing. DAO governance is entirely dependent on mathematical parameters hard-coded right into the smart contracts. And if you set these dials wrong, the DAO will either stall completely or get maliciously captured. The most absolutely vital parameter is the quorum. Simply put, this is the minimum percentage of the total token supply that has to show up and vote yes for a proposal to pass. For example, Uniswap has a strict 4% quorum rule. To put that in perspective, that means 40 million Uni tokens have to actively vote yes, or the proposal just fails, no matter how popular it might be among the smaller holders.
Setting these parameters is a wildly dangerous balancing act. If you set your quorum too high, you get gridlock. In fact, that's exactly why 60% of all DAO proposals fail to even reach quorum. But set it too low, a single wealthy whale can just sweep in and buy enough tokens to pass a vote entirely on their own. And the same logic applies to the voting threshold. If you set the threshold at a simple 51% majority without any safety locks, attackers can instantly borrow massive funds via flash loan, which is basically a giant split-second uncollateralized loan, vote to drain the treasury, and literally vanish in the exact same minute. And this is not theoretical, guys. In 2022, the Beanstalk protocol lost $182 million to exactly this kind of math-based governance attack.
Which perfectly sets up Section 4, the politics, whales and apathy.
We're leaving the pure mathematics behind now, because the second you inject actual human beings into these systems, you inevitably get messy politics. There's a famous saying in the crypto space, code is law, but the reality, politics is everything else. See, the smart contracts will flawlessly execute whatever they're told to do, but deciding what to tell them relies completely on the human social layer. That means Discord drama, community exhaustion, and massive venture capital funds voting strictly to protect their own portfolios. The human element always supersedes the code.
And that brings us to a glaring, almost shocking reality check. Voter turnout in DAOs is unbelievably low. We're talking hovering between just 2 and 10%. But when you really look at the incentives, voter apathy makes total, rational sense. I mean, why would an everyday retail user spend an hour of their life reading a highly technical, 20-page governance proposal when their 100 little tokens give them 0.0001% of the voting power? The math just doesn't justify their time.
Because organic turnout is so abysmal, this massive $100 million a year bribery market has actually sprung up. Platforms like Votium act as completely transparent, perfectly legal auction houses. Protocols literally pay token holders to vote for their specific liquidity pools or proposals. It operates very much like a digital, automated version of lobbying. You are legally allowed, and frankly encouraged, to sell your vote to the highest bidder.
So the crucial point is, we really have to ask what kind of system we've actually built here. When you have a voting structure where a mere 1% of the token supply, held by maybe 10 people total, has enough power to run a $3 billion protocol, is that a democracy? Objectively, it functions as a plutocracy. It requires us to completely rethink and redefine our expectations of what decentralized governance really means in practice.
Finally, we reached Section 5, the future of DAO governance.
Let's move to and see how this builds out towards the future. Right now, these flawed but undeniably fascinating structures manage around $12 billion. But can they evolve fast enough to run mid-sized companies or even entire cities by the year 2030? Well, by 2030, we're looking at massive user experience overhauls aimed squarely at fixing that voter turnout issue. We'll see gasless, one-click mobile voting using standard email logins. We'll see cross-chain execution, where a single vote on Ethereum seamlessly triggers a transaction on Arbitrum. We're even looking at AI delegates. Imagine assigning your voting power to a customized ChatGPT model that reads every single forum post and just votes automatically based on your personal values. That could solve apathy overnight. We'll also see hybrid models, where DAOs manage municipal digital budgets while traditional governments stick to handling physical things like trash collection.
As we look at the reality of this technology today, we see a super clear divide. DAOs are flawed, they are slow, they are absolutely plutocratic, but they are radically transparent. Because of this totally unique mix of capital and code, they excel beautifully at managing open-source protocols, distributing massive treasuries, and funding digital public goods. However, because they're inherently slow and require so much broad consensus, they drastically struggle with anything requiring rapid, top-down executive vision. You definitely don't want a DAO running a military, pivoting an early-stage startup, or operating an emergency room hospital.
Which leaves us with this final provocative thought. The question we should really be asking isn't whether DAOs are objectively better than traditional corporations or governments. The real question is, when are DAOs better? For specific digital native problems, they represent an incredible, powerful new tool. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the systems around you, and definitely keep exploring the fascinating future of internet governance.